Let's look at the positives, Chris Paul. First off, every single place Chris Paul has gone in his entire career, what has he always done? He's made them better. Success, winning. Okay, you're going to say CP0. Chris Paul never should be your. Usually, when you look at the history of basketball, has there ever been a 6-foot guard as the best player on a championship team?
Isaiah Thomas.
That's the only one, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, Bob Cousy, I think, might have won one before Russell.
Okay, let's not go back that far. Okay, that's different time, different era. So every place Chris Paul has gone, they've been successful. They've won. He's put out the best. He's gotten the best out of them. You go start at the Hornets where he was drafted. You go to the Clippers, creating Lob City, and he never should have had Blake Griffin as that just was a bad design. And then DeAndre. Oh, okay.
Well, it's really scary the injuries, those two.
Yeah. I get that, but to start it off, the product of the team was more about an entertainment value than it was about actually getting the job done late in the season. And they kind of got passed up. Like the era of basketball was switching right at that period of time because Golden State was coming in, and Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan were kind of like just nullified at the end of that because there was like not that much shooting from those spots. Then you go to Houston and you give Houston and James Harden his best chance at winning a championship. He had a game 7 in Houston, if I'm not mistaken, against the Warriors. Next year was a down year. Stuff behind the scenes got involved, and they couldn't recreate that magic of the year before and whatever. Then he goes to OKC. Everybody expected lottery team. The guy made the playoffs with that team. Made the playoffs. Went 7 games with his Houston team that shipped his ass out. Then he goes to Phoenix. A poor-ass franchise since what, the 2000s? Mid-2000s? 60-plus win team year in and year out, if I'm not mistaken. NBA Finals appearance. Record regular season wins.
64.
Makes Devin Booker start being talked about amongst the upper echelon of players because now he's actually winning. His stats are actually producing in terms of wins. Chris Paul is now coming to Golden State. Chris Paul brings leadership. Chris Paul brings toughness. Chris Paul brings an ability to be efficient. Chris Paul brings one of the highest basketball IQs in all of basketball. Chris Paul brings defensive tenacity. I know he's not what he once was, but he can still fight you, and he's going to bring that pit bull mentality. Chris Paul brings things. I know he's going to be asked to basically be a spot-up shooter. Chris Paul can make open shots, okay? Is he going to be Steph Curry or Klay Thompson? No, but he can make open shots. I don't know his numbers off the top of my head, but I think he's a career 37% three-point shooter, around that point. He can make open shots. I trust Chris Paul to make open shots. His mid-range is still deadly. So I don't see how it's going. When this move was made, I instantly thought, and I know Chris Paul is 7 inches shorter, but I instantly thought of Sean Livingston, of what role he brought to the Golden State in those early days, where a guy who's going to come off the bench and give you 15. Chris Paul is probably going to give you 15 to 25 minutes per game, and he's going to provide so much off the bench. And the key ingredient of this is that the issue is now resolved. Jordan Poole is left, bring Draymond Green back, and that issue is resolved. There's no more chemistry issues. They can say all the right things in the media. We know that wasn't the case. Actions speak louder than words. I'm a big action guy. I'm not about words can mean jack diddly shit to me. I saw Jordan Poole ignore Draymond Green in a playoff game this year, and Steph Curry had to get in his ass. I saw that. Not a good look. I saw Jordan Poole have his back turned while talking to the media after a playoff game this year. I saw that. No. Good move by the Golden State Warriors. And good move by the Washington Wizards, too.
Yeah, I think I'm with Brandon on that. I think any place that CP3 goes, things go well, at least for a short period of time. Golden State, their window to win another championship isn't a big window. It's closing. They're all getting older. Steph is in his mid-30s. Clay's getting older. Dre and drama with Dre. I think you implement CP. You just have a second floor general there who's probably going to come off the bench for you to run that second unit. I think that's an excellent move. You really can't go wrong with that. That's somebody with a championship mentality, although, yes, he hasn't gotten that ring. But I would say none of his teams have been – he hasn't been the reason that they haven't won the championship. He just hasn't had the greatest supporting cast to get him over that finish line, in my opinion. So I think – CP3 to Golden State, playing with Steph, playing with Clay, playing with Dre, I think that's a match made in heaven. And I think if anybody is going to transform any culture or just seamlessly fit in with the culture, it'll be Chris Paul. That's Golden State Warriors have won how many championships in the last couple of years? You throw CP3 in that's fine. You can't just throw any vet in there. CP3 is one of a kind. I think it worked.
I want to say one last thing, John, that Justin hit on real quick. Coming off the second unit, he's going to add so much help to a Kuminga and a Moody, where he's going to give them so much more confidence. He's going to get them so much better shots, and bring maybe their best abilities out. And yeah, that's all I want to say after that.
I do like the idea of him running pick and roll with Kuminga because he's the only one of really athletic pop on the team, but I think the theory of Chris Paul in this day and age is much better than the reality. He is one of the best, most high usage pick and roll guards in the league that goes to a team that ran the least amount of pick and rolls this season. There's a stat out there where, hell, he comes in, he now adds an element to where you can play stuff off the ball. But the reality is, in the 26 games Steph Curry missed this last season, the Warriors were 14-12. Why? Because Jordan Poole was their leading scorer, creating offense at a pretty high level when he was out. You add in Chris Paul, and don't get me wrong, I love the theory of him running the second unit rather well. In the playoffs, though, unlike Jordan Poole, who was hurt in this last postseason, he's going to be hurt. He has been at every stop of the way, minus Oklahoma City, because they didn't make it past the first rounds. If this Warriors team has aspirations to contend, we know Chris Paul is going to get hurt. It's unfortunately happened in just about every single stop since Los Angeles. And going on 39 years old, it's probably going to get a little bit worse. And even this last year, where he was healthy in the first game and a half, just one game and a half versus the Nuggets, he didn't have the same lift. This year, he made 16 shots at the rim. Or pardon me, I think the stat was he took 16 shots at the rim. And if he doesn't have the same lift, he shot 31% catch and shoot shots this last postseason. I look at the Warriors and I say, you got maybe worse right now. And long term, there is no successor now for Steph Curry. The whole point of this move to me was going all in with the core three. And I respect that. But you have to understand, we have to have some sort of game plan long term. Klay Thompson, to me, is just less valuable and less essential to this team because he's no longer an elite defender. And hell, I don't know if he's a good defender at this. He's okay. In the playoffs, his shot has failed him in back-to-back postseasons, and he's pressed so much with poor shot selection to try to get back into a rhythm, and it's hindered the Warriors' offense. Jordan Poole, to me, is more essential now and long-term. And while he had a terrible year, it's easy to project his growth long-term. And he's going to get better in Washington. So for Golden State, in theory, it's a great move. But in practicality, we've seen the end of the era. I think this is where you say to yourself, hey, look, if anything, they're going to use him like D'Lo in a potential trade to retain that roster spot. Maybe they can flip him to something down the line because he's non-guaranteed next season. I'm just really concerned because, well, I think Jordan Poole is going to light up in Washington, D.C. And while he was terrible, absolutely miserable this last postseason, he was dealing with that ankle injury. He had just been knocked out by a teammate. And generally speaking, he needed a little bit of clarity because the entire year he was cycling through a starting role to a bench role, and he was better in the starting lineup. So for the Warriors, I give this trade maybe a C plus. Paul has to stay healthy. And on top of that, he has to fit. I don't think he closes with these guys because he's not that much of a catch and shoot type player. He's also 6 foot. You can't play him and start him with Steph because defensively, you are very undersized now. And so, if they had a good role man, let's say they had someone that was more athletic than Draymond, I would be a little more optimistic here. But Draymond Green inherently is not a role. He's a good short roll passer, but he's not going to be the one finishing pick and rolls like he's DeAndre Jordan in his prime, or even DeAndre, and he's got amazing touch. So it doesn't feel like the right fit either to me.
No, your points are valid. I would just here's what I'd ask you. So you think that in practicality it's not going to work. So do you expect what do you expect from the Warriors this upcoming season then? Do you expect them to be finished with a worse record or stay the same?
Well, they just won 44 games.
That's what I'm
They're
saying.
the 6th seed. Do they win more or less? That's a good question.
So how much does this affect the Golden State Warriors when you say it's not going to work in practice? How much does this actually affect them?
I think you actually rely on Steph more now in the regular season to be healthy. But in the playoffs, it's not as essential for him to be on the floor in the 4 games that Paul's actually playing. So I expect them to be much around the same. Where I think this won't age well is when you get to the postseason and that $14 million, well, technically you're paying him $28 million. He's making the same. If you're going to actually, because the guarantee date, it was yesterday for Chris Paul's contract. He's guaranteed $28 million. He's making the same amount as Jordan Poole. Poole would at least be on the floor for you. And he brings a lot more value in the regular season. So I think Brandon, they still win around mid-40s. I don't expect them to win 50 because Steph is probably a 55 game per season player. And then the playoffs, that's where it'll start to sour.
All right, so here's sorry, Justin, because he didn't address the point that really is the crux of this whole issue is the issue between Draymond and Jordan Poole. Like, do you think like it's just magically finger snap, it gets fixed, like because we're in a new year now? Like, so how does that? Because for your thought to work, right? For Jordan Poole to reach his potential in Golden State, and for them to recreate that magic from 2 years ago, that issue has to be resolved. They had a whole year to do it, and it didn't happen. That's why I've been saying that it's not going to happen. So where does that magic fairy dust that you're talking about come from? How does that work?
The fairy dust isn't coming. You're picking between 2 hard choices. But in the pre-Steph Curry era, this Warriors team was miserable. Absolutely miserable. So your choices were you have to tough it out for 1 more year, give him Poole a second chance, which probably could age poorly, but it could also grow his value if you do want to flip him when he has, not 0 stars. The other option was you move him, and when Steph Curry retires in a couple of years, he's 35. Let's say he plays a 40. In 5 years, the Warriors are going to be miserable. There is nothing here outside Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, and that is where I come from.
But here's the thing, though. You're forgetting this. Do you know how hard it is to have a dynasty and at the same time focus on 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line? That's like damn near impossible. That doesn't happen in sport. You can count on probably your 2 hands how many times that's happened in sports in general. We're seeing it right now with the New England Patriots. We saw it with the 49ers got lucky with going from Joe to Steve, but that didn't last long. Look at the 49ers since that. Look at the Dallas Cowboys. I know I'm talking basketball, but football, but it's like you can look at basketball too. The Cleveland Cavaliers without LeBron.
But you know what? I think this is just the end. This is the 98. This is the 98 Bulls. Like they just had their last dance.
But here's the thing, though.
2023
here's the thing. Jordan Poole was never this successor. He was just another guy on there that is a good player who can put up great points on a team that's not winning, which he's going to do in Washington. I could imagine Jordan Poole averaging 25 points, probably on like 42% shooting from the field. I can see that happening. But so
they won when he was starting.
Yeah, but you say him to be the successor in Golden State. What success? There's no. It wouldn't have been successful without.
He was the 6th man on an NBA champion. That's the success.
What? Wait,
he started and they had a winning record without Steph Curry, who to me is the second best player.
What was the winning record? Wait, what was the winning
14
record?
14 and 12. You know what?
14 and 12. Isn't that fantastic?
2 games over
missing the second best player in the world. You know what?
You made it seem like he elevated them to a point where they were like with a 650 winning percentage. Yeah, they were barely 500.
That is impressive when you're missing that level of a player.
I understand. Yes, without Steph Curry, but still, that's not super impressive. That's barely cracking 500. You're not. with Jordan Poole as your number one, John.
They were barely cracking 500 with Steph, so clearly the roster wasn't that great.
Okay, but
Otherwise, it would have been better.
you're getting in a slippery slope. What you're trying to argue right there, though. Okay, what I'm saying though is Jordan Poole is not this successor. Okay, just like in New England, Jimmy Garoppolo was never going to be this successor. Okay, Jordan Love probably not going to be this successor. It's these are good players. They can be good players, but to like say like, oh, to succeed to the Golden State Warriors of the past. If you want to say it's the end, John, I agree with you. It's the end when Steph Curry leaves. When Steph's gone, it's over. So with Jordan Poole in 5 years, he'll be what, 28, 29 years old, right in the middle of his prime. There's no championships on the horizon unless they draft some like insanely highly touted talent that's in like 2027 or 2030, which is years away. So you got to, for what I'm basically trying to say is Golden State Warriors are focused on right now, because you shouldn't be worrying about 5-10 years. You got Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green coming back.
And I think that's the big thing. If you have Steph, Klay, Dre, and now you add CP3, you're not looking 5 years down the line. Your goal is right now. Your goal is just to win championships in one of the next 2 years. That's really it. I don't think this mentality of, oh, we have to worry about what's to come 5-10 years. We'll get there. We'll worry about that when we get there. But right now, in today's NBA, you go for winning championships. I mean, some organizations have to plan 5-10 years, like my Knicks, for so long, because we didn't have a championship roster. Our windows for winning a championship was completely shut. It didn't even crack. The Warriors actually have still a chance. That window is still open. So I'd rather throw all of my eggs in one basket to sell out and win a championship today, and then worry about the end of an era of Steph retiring, Klay leaving, and Dre leaving. Worry about that later.